In a shocking betrayal of the nation's elderly, Rachel Reeves, Chancellor under Keir Starmer's Labour government, has been accused of leading a cruel charge to axe winter fuel payments for 10 million vulnerable pensioners, a decision that has left many elderly Britons struggling to stay warm as winter looms. The scandal has taken a scandalous twist as it was revealed that Labour MPs who voted in favour of these brutal cuts have since signed up as champions for Age UK, a charity that had been fighting to protect the very benefits they scrapped. The hypocrisy of Labour's leadership is now fully exposed, leaving Reeves and Starmer at the centre of a growing political firestorm. With millions of pensioners left out in the cold, both figuratively and literally, the public is demanding answers as Labour's credibility nosedives. The scandal surrounding Rachel Reeves and the Labour Party has thrown the government into crisis mode as GB News reveals that Labour MPs have been engaging in blatant charity washing. After voting to cut winter fuel payments, a lifeline for millions of elderly Britons, 58 Labour MPs aligned themselves with Age UK, a charity that has been campaigning to save these very payments. Among the MPs caught up in the controversy are prominent figures like Barry Gardner, Margaret Mullane, Frank McNally and Olivia Blake, who have now been branded as hypocrites for supporting a charity while simultaneously undermining its cause. Rachel Reeves's decision to slash winter fuel payments was framed as an effort to stabilise the economy amid spiralling inflation and rising public debt. The cuts, which will leave 10 million pensioners without crucial financial assistance this winter, have been met with widespread condemnation. For many pensioners, winter fuel payments are the only thing standing between them and the threat of freezing homes as energy prices continue to soar. Labour's justification for the cuts, that it was necessary to balance the books, has not gone down well with the public, particularly as the cost of living crisis deepens. Reeves defended the decision, arguing that hard choices had to be made, but her insistence that the cuts were essential for the long-term economic health of the country has done little to placate those affected. With energy costs skyrocketing and inflation pushing up the price of essentials, pensioners are bearing the brunt of Labour's so-called fiscal responsibility. The scandal erupted when it was revealed that despite voting to axe winter fuel payments, Labour MPs had signed up as champions for Age UK, the same charity that had been fighting tooth and nail to preserve the payments. Constituents were stunned when they learned that MPs who had voted for the cuts were now aligning themselves with a charity advocating for the exact opposite. Emails from Age UK confirmed that Labour MPs were involved in the charity's campaign, sparking accusations of charity washing and hypocrisy. In one such email, Age UK responded to a concerned resident stating, "Your MP voted for the change to the winter fuel payment. Although you might be disappointed by this, with a strong majority and the threat of losing the whip, some MPs felt they had to vote with the government in order to stay in the party and therefore be able to influence policy change." This flimsy excuse has done little to dampen the growing outrage, with many voters feeling betrayed by MPs they had trusted to stand up for the most vulnerable members of society. Patrick Christys, a commentator for GB News, was quick to condemn the Labour MPs involved, calling their actions a disgrace. "Your elderly constituents needed you, and you failed them," Christys said in a fiery segment. "You are weak, you are pathetic, and you should be ashamed of yourselves." Christie's comments reflect the deep frustration and anger felt by many across the country who see Labour's MPs as putting their own political survival ahead of the welfare of those they claim to represent. But the scandal goes beyond the actions of individual MPs. It speaks to a larger problem within Keir Starmer's leadership. Starmer defended the decision to cut winter fuel payments during his keynote speech at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool, arguing that it was a necessary measure to prevent the UK from falling into economic chaos. "If you can't take that on faith because you're concerned about the winter fuel allowance, then I get that," Starmer said. "But the risk of showing to the world, as the Tories did, that this country does not fund its policies properly, that is a risk we can never take again." Starmer's defence has done little to calm the growing discontent. The scandal has caused Labour to plummet in the polls, with many voters, especially the elderly, feeling abandoned by a party they once relied on. The decision to align with Age UK, despite backing the very policy the charity opposed, has raised serious questions about Labour's integrity and its commitment to protecting vulnerable pensioners. Rachel Reeves, once seen as a capable steward of Labour's economic strategy, now finds herself at the centre of the storm. Reeves has faced mounting criticism for pushing through the cuts, without considering the long-term impact on pensioners, many of whom are already struggling to stay afloat amid the rising cost of living. Critics argue that Labour's economic policies are coming at the expense of the most vulnerable in society, and the cuts to winter fuel payments are just the latest example of this trend. Adding to the outrage is the fact that Age UK has been one of the most vocal advocates for maintaining winter fuel payments. The charity, which launched a petition to save the payments this winter, warned that cutting the benefit would leave millions of pensioners unable to afford their heating bills. For many, the payments are a vital safety net, ensuring they can keep warm during the harshest months of the year. Age UK's involvement in the scandal has left many questioning the charity's decision to partner with MPs who voted against the very cause it was fighting for. The scandal comes at a particularly bad time for Labour, which is already facing criticism for its handling of the NHS crisis. Health Secretary Wes Streeting has been pushing a plan to reform the NHS, including the recruitment of 1,000 new GPs, but the reforms have been met with skepticism. Kelvin Mackenzie, a media commentator, recently launched a scathing attack on Streeting's plans, accusing him of throwing money at the problem without addressing the underlying issues plaguing the health service. "There is no possibility of the NHS ever changing," Mackenzie said in a recent interview, arguing that the system is too entrenched in bureaucracy to be reformed by Labour's current approach. Despite the backlash, Wes Streeting has defended Labour's record on the NHS, insisting that the party has already made progress in addressing the crisis. In a recent interview with GB News, Streeting pointed to the recruitment of new GPS and the end of junior doctor strikes as key achievements since Labour took office. However, even Streeting acknowledged that the full impact of Labour's reforms won't be felt until April 2025, leaving many to wonder if Labour's approach will be enough to fix the system in time. As Labour faces crises on multiple fronts, the winter fuel payment scandal threatens to undermine the party's credibility just as it attempts to navigate a turbulent political landscape. For Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, the road ahead is uncertain, as they attempt to recover from a scandal that has damaged the party's standing with pensioners and the broader public. Whether Labour can regain the trust of voters remains to be seen, but the damage caused by the winter fuel payment debacle may be difficult to repair. Also, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Our community is growing with each day. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned.